Thank you all for having me. Can you hear me okay out there?
Yep.
Great. Um, yeah, I'm grateful that you asked me to share a little bit about what we are doing. I'm also really glad to be on a panel with Kristen and Rowan, two people I admire very much. And I've been, building a friendship and a relationship with both of them since before True Love Seeds existed. And I'm just really glad that our stories will be kind of shared together here. And excited to hear what they have to say. Uh, so yeah, I have a couple of things I want to share with you all. I guess I'll say first that just a little background before we play the little True Love Seeds movie. Um, I started growing food about 28 years ago when I was a young teenager in northeastern Connecticut. And 20 years ago, 2003, I was actually living in San Francisco and spent a couple years working, kind of dipping my toe into the environmental justice and food justice movements through some internships and projects with Poder and the Mission of San Francisco and San Francisco Food Systems and People's Grocery in West Oakland. So that California is kind of where the food justice side of my work really started. And I moved in 2005 to New York and worked for 7 years with an organization called Just Food, where I was working with community gardeners in particular in South Bronx, Central Brooklyn, up Lower East Side, Harlem, where people, mostly older Black and Latino gardeners, had kind of taken control of land that had been abandoned through white flight disinvestment in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and created these abundant spaces of food production and community building. And my work was really, at its core, recognizing their leadership and funneling resources to them, especially in the face of a gentrifying urban agriculture movement at that time that was suddenly very hip and exciting for young people, young white people in particular. And so lifting up the voices and expertise and experience and skill sets of the kind of people who paved the way over the previous generations in the community gardens in New York. So that's kind of the foundation of my work. And uh, when I moved to Philadelphia 10 years ago, I just happened to need part-time work while I was a community organizer dealing with similar issues around development pressures on gardens in Philadelphia. Now that Philly has become very popular space for young, wealthier people to move, um, I needed other work, and I met Dr. William Moyes Weaver, uh, who um, who I started helping with his gardens and his seed collection. And he found his grandfather's seed collection frozen in a deep freezer in the 60s. It had been started in the 30s, 1932. And he started growing out the varieties. By the time I met him in 2013, he had 4,000 varieties of heirloom seeds in his personal collection. And over the next 4 years, I spent time managing his collection, starting to sell seeds through a couple seed companies and through our own seed company that we started. Um, and so that's really where I started to realize that my path was with seeds and seed stories and seed keeping. At the same time, I was invited with my partner Chris to a seed keepers collective here in the Mid-Atlantic that was primarily focused on African diasporic seeds and seed stories. And so that shaped my understanding of what it means to be a seed keeper, focused on the storytelling aspect, the ritual, and not just the genetic material, but the cultural piece. And so when my partner Chris and I started Truelove Seeds in 2017, it was really because we wanted to create a project that kind of connected to the food justice movement, worked with farmers who had a particular emphasis on cultural preservation, in addition to the ways they invest in their communities' health through rural and urban farming. and lifting up the ancestral food stories through the work. And so we thought of a seed company model. I had been in nonprofits at that point for like 15 years and really wanted a different model that wasn't reliant on grants and chasing wealthy donors, but instead funded by gardeners and farmers and shaped by those relationships. And so this was an experiment in kind of what a for-profit model, but with a lot of values from my work in the food justice movement. So anyway, I think I'll stop here, and if we could watch that 2-minute video, I'll go from there. We just made this video this fall as a way to try to explain what we're doing and have it not just be my face telling the story, but our whole team.
We are seed keepers, storytellers, and farmers. Together we learn how to cherish and steward our plant relatives, carrying forward their rich stories of origin and midwifing their future generations.
We mentor apprentices and aspiring seed growers, who in turn show us new ways of knowing.
We send seeds back home and around the world.
We thresh, birthing new life from the wisdom of those that came before, and we winnow, ushering in the world to come.
Over 70 farms and gardens share seeds and stories of our beloved foodways throughout our diasporas.
Grown for us, by us, one seed packet at a time. Each one tells a story of their hopes, joys, survival, and rootedness.
When you order our seeds, farmers benefit directly. They receive half of the sale. Their foodways flourish, and their work is uplifted.
Truelove showed me how to build community through seed keeping.
Gave me the idea to save my traditional seed.
Helped us connect to our motherland and make space for our own stories.
Me ha ayudado a mí a preservar mis raíces puertorriqueñas.
TrueLove helps me to grow my traditional foods from Mississippi and share them with folks all over the world.
Keeping seeds is an act of true love for our past and our collective future.
Thank you, that's good. Oh, that's nice. I haven't seen it in a little while. It's very sweet. So that's a bunch of our team, my coworkers, apprentices, and some of our community partners and growers, kind of telling the story of what we do. I had this thought. I haven't done this in a presentation form before, but to show an impact report that we made to kind of help describe what makes our approach unique to you all. So that if you could pull that up next, I'll kind of speak along with those slides. This is to give some. Am I still here? You are. Okay, sorry, I'm on my phone and my mother-in-law just tried calling me. So how is Truelove Seeds different from other seed companies? So we made these just again to try to explain what we're doing to people. So yeah, as you heard in the video, we send 50% of our sale back to our growers. When we designed this, we wanted it to be a meaningful income for the farmers that we worked with, as a way to really incentivize some of the food justice projects and small farms to get into the project of growing seeds. And so this is quite a large number for a seed company. It's quite a large amount to send back to the growers, but we stand by it. And we really like hearing from them when they tell us that this allowed them to make an investment in infrastructure or feels like a meaningful contribution for their work. Can you go to the next slide? So this means that, you know, as of September, we've sent, and we've been around since 2017, we've sent $138,000 to the growers that we work with. And then also part of that is the next slide, which is, you know, over $7,000 to Indigenous farming projects, as kind of we keep track of the sales of seeds from the Lenni Lenape varieties, and in Philadelphia, where we're based, is on Lenni Lenape land, as well as some Mohawk seed sales and Potawatomi and Wampanoag and actually Shuar from the Amazon, from the Ecuadorian Amazon. So we keep aside that 25% of the sales of all those seeds to send to farming projects in those communities. We also work with the Wampanoag grower. So she ends up getting actually 75% of the sale, and we just try to cover the costs on our end with the other 25%. So this is how much we've sent to those groups. Let's go to the next slide. I think, yeah, and you can just see how our payments to growers has increased over the years. You know, last year working with 50 growers who had seeds, successfully grew seeds for our catalog, and how much we were able to send to those growers. And if you go to the next one, I think we'll skip through these. This is just some comparative rates, like what we've given per pound once we did the math on that compared to what we've seen from other seed companies. Let's go to the next one. This is just how we're you know, where we send our money, where we spend our money. Let's skip this one too. If you're interested in seeing these more, we posted these in our Instagram, if you're on Instagram, a few months ago. So yeah, we tried to kind of define our mission. As we're not a nonprofit, we don't really spend a lot of time defining stuff like this, but we tried to pull out the themes to explain to people on this slide. And you've seen the higher pay for farmers through profit sharing. That was kind of spelled out in the previous slides. We try our best to also give fair and equal and living wages for our staff. We all make the same, you know, hourly rate, and we've incrementally increased that every year based on any profits we might have. We give as bonuses and then make that the new rate for the next year. Last year, my team advocated for a living wage, which we were able to do. And so we're just, like, as we can, making it more and more supportive of our team. And that's been great to be able to do that. What else should I say about this? We do the indigenous seed rematriation. I'm sure you'll hear amazing things from Rowan White about this. And it's very much inspired by conversations with her. And that's sending, especially with since we have a good sized collection of Lenni Lenape varieties, we send free indigenous seeds to any, you know, tribe that requests them, or person from a certain nation that requests them. In addition to those payments that we do center farmers of color, which is just kind of going back to our roots in the food justice movement. We work with, as you'll see in future slides, work with really any farmers that are willing to focus on their own cultural seeds, but really with a focus on making available seed varieties that are historically very difficult to find here, especially to communities of color, refugees, immigrants, you know, people migrating from other parts of the country. But, you know, all of us are tasked, regardless of kind of our backgrounds, with doing that ancestral work through seeds, so that we're all kind of having a similar experience, and we're all bringing something to the table. And so I focus on Southern Italian and Irish varieties, and I've had really meaningful relationships that are growing more each year with Italians and Italian Americans, especially through that work, that I'm excited to continue deepening. What else on here? Of course, storytelling is central to our work through our catalog descriptions, but also through our podcast, where we interview, you know, farmers that grow for us, or just friends of ours who are farmers or chefs or gardeners, about their cultural seeds, so that our people can listen to their voices directly, rather than through an interpretation on our web catalog or social media. So that was the kind of the logical extension for us to be able to share those seed stories directly from the people who are stewarding those varieties. Let's do the next one. So there's a few slides here just where we break down, you know, the growers that we're working with, just to show, you know, our focus. You know, while we're centering farmers of color, it's still about half of the growers we work with are either, farmers of color or a multiracial group. If you can go to the next slide, and you can see that it's about half too in terms of where the payments go. And it's a little less than half actually, versus a little more than half in terms of the numbers, because some of the rural farms we work with, a lot of the rural farms we work with are run by people of color, and a lot of them probably disproportionately white farmers who are able to grow much larger quantities and more varieties. So we're excited to look at this number and think about where we can focus on building the capacity of the farmers we work with, to do more if that's what they want. And let's go to the next slide. Yeah, you can see, we broke this down by what type of farm it was. Let's do the next slide. Urban versus rural. We work with a pretty large percentage, a third of the farms we work with are urban farms. Let's go to the next one. And then LGBTQ plus. It happens to be, probably just because of our friend networks, a large percentage of the farms we work with are LGBTQ. Let's go to the next one. So here's just some of the faces of the farms that we work with. And you can see Kristen Leach up in the top right-hand corner. We've been working with since the beginning. And yeah, we work with a lot of farms, and I'm realizing this year that there needs to be a cap, either there needs to be a cap or we need to build capacity on our team in terms of how to manage, and nourish and nurture the relationships that we have with growers. It's hard to keep track of this many relationships, and up till now, it's really been my job on top of all the other things I do at Truelove Seeds. And so we're hitting a point where we need to shift the way that we build this network. One way that we're trying to make it less of a hub and spoke model, where I'm the hub of mentorship and communication, is finding ways for the network to interact with each other. And we do monthly Zooms that we've actually missed for a couple months now, but are about to jump back into, where all the farmers are welcome to focus on a particular topic. We've had speakers come to our monthly Zooms. We've had kind of update Zooms where people ask each other questions and problem solve together. We also have a Google group for all the growers, and we have an in-person gathering once a year for anyone who can make it to our farm. I mean, the growers we work with are throughout the whole country, but we try to invite people to our farm for a gathering a year, just so people can meet each other and build relationships with each other. Let's go to the next slide. We do, I think I mentioned some of these things. We do workshops in Philadelphia and in the region to help build up the seed saving capacity of the region. We do apprenticeships, and I think that actually comes up in the next slide. We've had 20 apprentices over the 6 years. Let's see, how many years? The 5 years that we have done apprentices, these little green dots add up to more, but some people have come for multiple years. So we've had 20 apprentices. 5 of them have become staff at Truelove Seeds, and 6 of them have become growers for our catalog. So it's been a way to invest in new seed keepers and new seed producers through hands-on learning at our farm, and also really how we've built strong relationships that have led to people becoming our coworkers and people becoming our growers for the catalog, which has been really satisfying. And there's a couple stories on the next slide that I'll tell before I stop. You all may be familiar, but at this point, with Amira Mitchell, who has just launched her Sista Seeds seed catalog this week. It's her first seed catalog. She started with us in 2018 and became staff she was with us for 4 years. Actually, her and her partner work sporadically for us every winter. So they're also in the office this winter, cleaning seeds and filling seed packets. But she started her own African diasporic seed farm this last year, a little north of Philadelphia. where she grew. She's now our most prolific grower. She had 30 varieties she grew for our catalog, but she's also growing for Ujama Seeds and some other seed companies, as well as starting her own seed company, which is just awesome. She's like the big success story. I mean, just a relationship that I'm so grateful for, because it's amazing to see what she's doing. Chris Keeve apprenticed 2019 and is now a grower for Truelove Seeds, Ujama Seeds, Experimental Farm Network, and studying the geography of seeds and seed communities, and is doing a focus on the Truelove Seeds network this year as part of their dissertation. Akoff is from Kenya and spends part of her year there, and her vision is to move back there and develop a similar kind of seed sovereignty program. And so it's just an example of someone who's using their experience at Truelove to go back home and create something focused on seeds and community. So that's really all I guess I wanted to say. And I don't know if there's time for questions now, but I'm happy to stay on if so, and I'll try to also listen to the next presenters while I also parent our child on mute.
Thank you so much, Owen.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Owen? I realized I was a little remiss in not framing the overall discussion for this morning, which was one of the things that a lot of people have been asking about and been interested about, felt like have been feeling out, is kind of what are some models for how to collaborate and collectively grow seed, whether that's in a more commercial space or in supporting a community. And so Owen and Kristen and Rowan have helped kind of share a few, are going to be sharing a few different models here that we can maybe pull pieces of and get inspiration from. And so we'll also have a lot of space, hopefully, for discussion about other models that people have experienced in ways that, and we'll be bringing this into tomorrow too, where some of the folks from Ujama, Bonilla and Alexis and Nate from Ujama are going to be sharing how they've been developing their, was now I think officially a co-op as of a few weeks ago, and how that formed. And then we'll have some space there to really think about if there are ways for the people in this room, the people who are participating virtually, to connect and share resources to build community, to collaborate. So I just want I forgot to frame all of this in that context, but yeah, are there any individual questions? Yeah, that's okay. I'll start with you, Bianca.
Yeah, I was curious about the payment to the farmers. Is the payment 50% not net profit? And then also, how do you track that in regards to sales and how much each farmer gets?
Yes, no, the 50% is, so our seed packets are mostly $5. The grower gets $2. So it's before we even calculate profits or anything like that. And then we keep, my sister is our bookkeeper, and she just tracks every single payment, every single sale through Shopify and QuickBooks. And quarterly, as she's reconciling the books, she's able to calculate farmer pay. And it usually actually takes her, over a month we do it quarterly. So we usually don't get the checks out until like a month and a half after that quarter ends, just because of all the work of bookkeeping. But that's how we do it. It's very difficult. I used to do it myself, and it would take me an entire day to figure out all the math and track all the sales. And we're hoping to find a better way that's not so time intensive, but it's what we have come up with up to this point. And we just want to make sure that the farmers get, fairly compensated.
Thanks. Tushar, I think you have your hand up in chat. All right. Yeah.
Yes. Hi. Great presentation, Owen. I really like the model you guys are working on. I'm just curious about what is the process for a grower to be a part of your company, and how do you anticipate the needs, and are all your sales through online or any other outlets? Thanks.
Great, thank you. We, at this point, we have it's really the growers contact us, interested growers contact us. And if it seems like a good fit and that the growers are truly focused on their ancestral or cultural seeds, then we have a kind of an intake form that front ends a lot of the information about how we work with growers, like what growers can expect in terms of our timeline in the year, the model, the payment schedule, and then just explaining our focus on cultural seeds, and then gathering information from the grower about their experience, their interests, what seeds they might be interested in growing, what kind of mentorship they would like. Also explaining, our network, the Google group, the monthly Zooms. So just kind of a form that explains a lot and then gathers a lot of information that'll guide a conversation that at this point I have with the interested growers to talk about what they might need and what they might be interested in to be part of this project. And then, yes, our sales are almost entirely online. Because of our model with the 50%, it's very difficult to be, for someone who's used to buying pretty cheap seeds for retail. Usually people are not interested once they see our prices. We don't go very low because we sell out of most things anyway. So we don't want to undercut the farmers that we work with by discounting their packets for a retail operation. So our sales are almost entirely sold online, but there are some mission-based retailers and organizations that do pay our wholesale rate or even our full cost in order to support our mission and our farmers in our company.
Thanks.
Charlie.
Charlie, yeah, you might have to speak up from the back there.
Okay, so thanks, Owen. That's a very interesting model. I'm wondering, so how do you talk with farmers about how much seed to produce of a given variety and how much they could expect to sell, and what do you do with unsold inventory and things like that?
Yeah, we have a seed saving chart that actually my coworker Amira made, where once we're kind of engaged in the conversation with a grower, we share that with them or just translate it into their copy cells into their growers agreement, which is kind of the equivalent of what most companies would call a contract, where we put down the varieties that they're planning to grow for that year. And we put the column for like the minimum harvest we would want and the ideal harvest. Plus we put information like a minimum germination rate that we'd aim for and the ideal one, and the isolation distance. So just so that, especially because we work with a lot of new seed growers, so some of that info is upfront in the grower agreement. And we base that on sales of similar things, whether it's similar species or variety, or similar in its cultural importance to certain groups. And but a lot of the new growers we work with, we encourage them to bring a variety that is not already in our catalog as a way for them to, it's kind of a safe way both for us and them to enter into this new experience and relationship. For example, if they're offering a cultural crop that we don't already offer and they have a wildly successful harvest, amazing. We've introduced something new. We're able to sell a lot of packets of it. People from their similar cultural community are looking for it a lot of times. if they have a crop failure because they're new to seed production, then it's not something that our customer base is already expecting us to have. And kind of losing track of where I'm going here. In terms of extra inventory, we do aim to have 2 years of sales from each harvest. We obviously germ tests with certified labs to make sure that they're germinating really well. And so if there's, you know, a second year of sales possible, of course, we'll germination test them again and make sure they're doing well. But we won't normally sell things into year 3 just because we're worried about vigor and, you know, vitality and things like that, even if it's germinating pretty well still. So I don't know if that answers all your questions. Sometimes with a new grower, we'll also, you know, see if they could be a backup grower for a crop that's very popular, especially, of course, if it's culturally important to them. So that, again, the stakes aren't so high with taking on a really important seed crop as they're kind of learning the ropes of seed production.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Anyone else have a question for Owen? Obviously, Owen, you said you're willing to stay on as we continue this conversation.
I am.
Let's see. Oh, Lucky.
Yeah. So I assume this relationship is like a contract farmer you are growing with you, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't fully hear.
The farmers are growing seed on contract with you, right?
Essentially, we don't have contracts exactly, but yes, we have grower agreements.
And only TrueLove Seed can sell, or growers can also sell?
Oh yeah, we don't control that in any way. It's up to them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many of our growers sell to other companies or through, you know, like I said, Amira sells through Sista Seeds and a couple other companies, everything that she grows. So we don't concern ourselves with that. You know, basically we're anti-capitalists who are using a capitalist model and doing our best to make it work.
Thank you so much.